you can hear me, and those of you who are joining, by all means, please put in the chat a shout out where you're calling from, or where you're dialing in from, or zooming in from, and that would be great. We'd love to know where you're joining us Excellent. It's great. All right, it's 3 o'clock and we're at the top of the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today at this webinar. You know, to be or not to be credentialed, that's what we're going to be talking about today, right? It's a question that I get, that gets asked of me, that probably gets asked of you, or maybe you ask yourself. But it's definitely a question that we're going to be asking our guest speaker here today. So I'm very excited to kick this off. And for those of you who are joining for the very first time, thank you for joining us. Those who joined us before, welcome back. We really appreciate that. As you know, these webinars are hosted by the International Coaching Group, also known as Coaching Out of the Box. Coaching Out of the Box is a level 1 ICF-accredited coaching educator committed to excellence in coaching education. We provide world-class training, webinars, seminars, thought leadership, workshops, and so much more. And this webinar is just an example of the resources we provide to coaches and to leaders globally. Before we start the program, I'd like to draw your attention to the Q&A button that you can see on the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to post any of your questions there as they come up, and also put your comments and your questions into the chat. We do have folks who are actually monitoring those chats. We want to get to answer all of those questions that you have here, and we will open it up for question and answers at the end. Please know that this webinar is also recorded, and if you would like to have a recording of this webinar, please, there is a link in the chat that you can register. You can formally register, and using that link, and we will send that to you along with some of the other great resources that we'll be talking about today. So to get started, my name is Ellie Tava, and I am the Director of Sales here at the International Coaching Group. And I am thrilled at the opportunity to be your host today as we speak and we learn from our esteemed guest, Lorraine Giddick. Just to share with you, Lorraine Giddick is the founder and CEO of Soul Designs Coaching. She's a coach educator. She's a master's certified coach since 2006, and we'll probably share some insight there. She's also the director of certification here at Coaching Out of the Box. And we can't think of anyone greater to share her knowledge and expertise and insight into whether or not a coaches should be credentialed or not credentialed. Along with her impressive background and career, she is a wife and a mother, but she truly has a heart of gold. And I know that personally because I've had the opportunity to share some great and get some wisdom from her and share some stories. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome Lorraine Giddick to this webinar. So first of all, welcome, Lorraine. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, hectic schedule oftentimes, but thank you so much for making the time to be here today and sharing your knowledge with us. But before we start, just so the audience can get to know you a little bit more. I've already shared some information about you, but maybe there's something you might be able to share with us to get to know you a little bit better, either personally or professionally.
Well, first of all, thank you for the warm welcome, and welcome everyone who's made time for this webinar today. It's an important conversation, and I'm so happy that you're holding this, Ellie. Just creating an environment where people can gather information about this, whether they are on their coaching journey or starting their coaching journey. And you know, when I hear, so as far as sharing, when I hear MCC since 2006, I go, really? Because it was 6 years before that my coaching journey started. And it was at a time in 1998 when coaching was not a thing. It was just emerging really in its infancy. And and it's quite an honor and a privilege to see where it's come to. You'll have to excuse me for a second.
That's okay. Thank you, Lorraine. I think she's gonna, you know, what she said since 1988, I mean, back then when, you know, when credentialing was fairly new. I think it was also fairly new for women in the industry as well. So that's pretty amazing. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. So while she's getting some water and getting ready, you know, what we'll do is we'll start off with, as we did with introductions, and then we'll go into the distinctions maybe. But go ahead, Lorraine. I'm sorry. Welcome back.
Thank you. What an inopportune time to get a tickle in my throat. So yeah, so I have water near me, not sure what's happening there. Excuse me. Where I was going was the setting the stage for this credentialing conversation. It was really at a time in 1998, the ICF had just been established in 1995. And I actually didn't realize that when I started. I came to learn that later on, but I was just, as I learned about coaching, I was learning about the ICF as well. And what the ICF offered me at the very beginning was a place to connect with other coaches and talk about this thing and find community and talk about this thing that was a newly emerging profession called coaching that was actually, we were just learning to talk about. And so that was actually one of the huge benefits and missions of the ICF originally, which I wasn't aware of at the time. Excuse me.
So I think what we're going to do is when she comes back and she finishes her statement, I think what we'll do is we'll do some level setting, because I really feel these words credentialing and certification and accreditation, those words are thrown around all over the place, but yet we need a level set, kind of what truly does credentialing mean in coaching, and what truly does a certification mean in coaching, and what does accreditation mean in coaching. And so I think when Lorraine gets back, she'll give us those definitions first to just really level set our collective understanding of what those definitions are. So as we go through this webinar, we start talking and asking questions, we start with a true understanding of what each of those words mean.
You're doing an amazing job, Ellie.
Oh, thank you.
Third time is a charm. So I hear that starting off with the baseline of what do these words mean. So certified, to be a certified coach generally means that you are educated. You become certified by your coach educator. The credential is the acknowledgement that you have gone through a rigorous process of being able to both demonstrate your coaching competencies through and your understanding of them and your embodiment of the coaching skills and mindset through a performance evaluation, as well as the other, we'll go into more detail about that. But you've been able to both demonstrate your practice in coaching and your ability to demonstrate your understanding of coaching, as well as in a written exam form. So the applied knowledge, you're able to do both. And the credential is what really that signifies, is going through that rigorous process. You are accredited then by the ICF. We have schools that are accredited by the ICF. So the accreditation, ICF is the body that is accrediting or is giving you that designation, and which you're then aligned with. So they're acknowledging that they have and they're accrediting you with this credential. So in the same way, they provide accreditation for coach educators. So those definitions can be confusing, but generally a certified coach is one that has gone through an education. They're provided certification from their educators. The credential is what you receive from the ICF, and then you are then accredited by them as a professional coach, upholding the standards of the ICF.
Oh, thank you so much. I get calls every day, Lorraine, about, somebody wants to be a coach, especially when they're starting out on their journeys, their coaching journeys, and they start to look for coaching educators, only to find out more information, and they come across this accreditation standard, this gold standard, which is the International Coaching Federation, right? And so all of a sudden that brings in another layer of knowledge and another layer of complexity in their journey, because now they're thinking, again, back to the question, should I be credentialed? Should I not be credentialed? But I think we need to take the lens a little further out and talk about, and I think this is where you were starting with, is the International Coaching Federation, and bringing in and talking about that history and why is it so important, and what is its main focus, and why is it that the tide is turning, that corporations are now asking for their coaching culture coaches be credentialed or have an ICF credential. So, Lorraine, can you help?
Yeah, I really appreciate how you how you stage that question, because we have been on a journey. And what's exciting about the ICF and what I appreciate about them and the integrity of the organization from the start, when I entered in at 98 till now, is that it's an association that is run by coaches for coaches. And it is evolving and growing as a result. So as far as the goal of the organization in the beginning, the vision was to bring credibility to this emerging profession that I spoke of just a few minutes ago. So it was new, there was recognition that it was new, and having an established body of governance and standards and competency was to bring that credibility to and also, like I mentioned, a place for coaches to connect and find community and to support one another as we were pioneering this profession. And just a little bit of an anecdote, and I would like to acknowledge Thomas Leonard for all that he has brought to us, because he is considered the founder and the grandfather of coaching, if you will. In my world, there may be other people that were around at the same time, but Thomas Leonard founded the ICF shortly after starting one of the first coaching training schools, which was Coach U. So he's been on a bit of a journey there, and recognized the importance of having that association, that body of governance, to bring credibility to coaching. So really, that was the intention. We started off with 11 competencies, and that only changed a few years ago. So now we've evolved. We didn't change. We evolved those competencies to the 2020 version, which are now 8 competencies. So we're growing and evolving, and that is showing up in so many different ways through the ICF. They're really mirroring and showing us that growth of coaching. And coaching the ICF has grown to be the leading voice for coaching, the global leading voice for coaching, and has really done a lot to promote coaching, the standards, the consistency, the competencies, provide a level of consistency and continuity that the consumers of coaching worldwide have been able to expect and come to know as coaching, which I think is really one of the benefits also of being an ICF associated coach, is that they are that leading voice. And they are more and more becoming the hub of all things coaching.
Thank you. You know that you mentioned the word competencies. You talked about, now the 8 core competencies, right?
Yes.
But when we look at this, that's important, right? Because of the 3 credential designations that the ICF provides, which is the Associate Certified Coach credential, the Professional Certified Coach credential, and the Master Certified Coach credential. Can you talk a little bit about that? And then also just share a little bit about what those requirements are, because oftentimes there is some confusion in that area with respect to what are the requirements to an ICF credential.
I love that you're asking that question, and that it provides people to begin with an end in mind. Because I like everything coaching, if we know where we're headed, it's a lot easier to get there. So this is a really important part of this dialogue that we're having. So thanks for that question.
You're welcome.
You mentioned the 3, so ACC, PCC, MCC. So there is a credentialing path that you can go on. I knew from the outset that I wanted to be an MCC, and I drove that outcome. And at the time that I began, the ACC did not exist. So, and the experience hours were different. So I am going to answer your question. I just think that this history is also kind of neat to know that there has been enough, it always hasn't been this way. So I don't know the exact year. I think it was around 2003 or 2005, the ACC came into being. But when I received my PCC, when I started, it was the first level of certification you could achieve, and 750 paid coaching hours were required to achieve that designation. Now there's 500. So they've really made, and they brought in the ACC to allow people to have a more scaffolded credential path to come in at a basic level of education. So this gets to the requirements. So there are, in general, for all levels of accreditation, ACC, PCC, and MCC, there are 5 different aspects. There is a coach-specific education. So there's an educational requirement, which Coaching of the Box offers, as well as other educators. There is experience hour requirement, a certain number of experience hours. There is a mentor coaching requirement. All levels of accreditation require 10 minimum hours of mentor coaching that must happen over a minimum of 3-month period. And then there's the performance evaluations, which is the demonstration of your coaching in a recorded format that is then evaluated by an assessor, either in-house at the ICF, but we're shifting to having that be done by educators as well. That's another shift that's happening that we can maybe speak to in a little bit. And then the final requirement for accreditation, for certification with the ICF, is a written exam, a proctored written exam.
Great, thank you. That really does, create an understanding of where everyone has to start, right? There's a baseline, there's requirements, of course, the number of hours, the number of, and I think when we start there, there's some clarity, there's some understanding, as you shared. It's starting with the end in mind.
Yes, and you can help me with this word, because I have my whole life not been able to say it, but the experience hours, the training hours, they are cumulative. How do you say that? They build on each other.
Cumulative. They're cumulative.
That. Yeah.
That's okay. I'm here to help you with that. I'm here to help you with that.
Okay, well, now that I've stopped the tickle in my throat, then so just know that if you're and your coach log, your experience hours can begin as soon as your coach training begins. So it is important for people, because coaching has been around for a while, and some people have those skills from other skill set like leadership, or they've got some coaching skills. If you have not taken a coach education, you cannot log hours that you have perhaps been hired as a coach or been a coach prior to your actual formal coach education starting.
Thank you. Lorraine, we have a question here. What are the benefits for the coach to be credentialed, given that most clients don't necessarily understand the difference between certified and credentialed? That's a great question.
It's a really great question. And I think that question really highlights where exactly where we are and where we're headed as a profession, because the population is becoming more and more educated about credentialing and the ICF and what those credentials mean. There was a recent study done, and this is posted. What's fantastic about the ICF too is they do have a research section. So any research about coaching that they've done is posted on the site. And this is information that I did pull from that site, that 85% of people being coached who are part of this poll say that it's important that their coach hold an ICF credential of some kind. Now, certification, I believe, was enough up until this point, but as the consumers of coaching become more and more educated, the requirement, I think we're at that tipping point. We're really, we've been, learning, growing, but so have our clients. More people in the world have access coaching than ever before, and that's going to continue to grow. And the expectation for credentialing will continue to grow as people come to understand a certain level or expertise in coaching and expect that level of credibility, ethical behavior, and standards. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Pablo Lietas is our CEO. He actually moderated our webinar last month with Miriam Guerrero-Chuck. She's a master certified coach as well. She's on our faculty. You probably know her, Lorraine. And it was about the uprise in the coaching profession and why it's so popular. And that was, you talked about that tipping point. Absolutely spot on. For those of you in the audience who want a link to that recording, we can definitely put that up here in the chat. So when we think, we talked about ICF, the International Coaching Federation. Are there other globally recognized coaching institutions? If so, can you share them with us and kind of talk to us about the comparison, maybe some kind of very high level competitive advantages, maybe differentiators?
Yeah, so there are 6 at this point that are well known, and I would say are the most known. And I'm not really sure of the semantics here, but coaching organizations or associations versus institutions.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's semantics. I don't know really if it matters. But the International Coach Federation, of course, we're discussing the International Authority for Professional Coaching and Mentoring. So I'll say that again, the International Authority for Professional Coaching and Mentoring. And they provide really an oversight. They're really looking at the standards of coaching and mentoring and creating some rigor and consistency around that. Those professional, specific to coaching and mentoring. The Center for Credentialing Education. Again, the Center for Credentialing and Education. And they're really looking at maintaining a high level standard of credentialing education and across professions, not necessarily just coaching. The European Mentoring and Coaching Council, that again focused on mentoring and coaching. They provide their own accreditation, their own credentials, but it's a place again to create more visibility and reach if you're working globally in Europe. But they are also considering and working towards being a globally recognized organization. The International Association of Coaching, the International Association of Coaching, and finally the Association for Coaching. So the International Association of Coaching is looking at more the transformational aspect of coaching. So there's a community there that's really about coaching, I think, as a calling versus something that you demonstrate. So there's different communities to connect and relate with and find community. I think that's what's important. And we can definitely share these top 6 and provide links so people can go and check out those different associations.
I think that, Lorraine, no, thank you. I think that's very helpful because we're here to help educate, right? This is what we do. We want to give information, be that resource. We've been around for a very long time. And so it's important to not only just talk about the International Coaching Federation, but also and recognize these other players. But going back to the ICF, that is the one for me, especially when people are calling, that's what they're asking for. They're asking for that fast track to ICF credential, right? They're asking for how to get there. So thank you for sharing that information. I think that would be really invaluable to others rather than seeing all these acronyms, because they're all in acronym form, and these acronyms and going and doing those research. So I think that'll be really helpful. So this might be more of your opinion here that I'm gonna, with my next question that I'm gonna be asking. So please, you can feel free to answer it in both ways anyway. But just straight out, are coach credentials important? Are they important? And if so, why? And if not, why?
Okay, so yeah.
So no, great. I love it. Yeah.
They are important because of the consistency and continuity that we are providing the coaching consumers. And I feel strongly about this because I feel we all have a responsibility to this emerging profession. We're only like 25, 27, like we're still young. We are still pioneering and still growing and learning daily about what coaching is, what it can be, what it will be. I feel it's really important, and going right back to the intention behind the ICF in the very beginning, which was bringing credibility to this emerging profession, but it's also how it benefits us as professionals. It gives us a standard. It provides us a community so we're not alone in the world doing this work. Thinking together and collaborating. There's so much space for volunteering, for attending events, to like the Converge event. The ICF coaching conference is in Florida this year. Again, it's the first live conference in a number of years, so very exciting.
Yeah.
But I guess I go back to consistency, continuity, and integrity that we bring as professionals globally. If we are oriented around a certain way of being, the ethics, we're operating under the same ethics. We all have our own take on those ethics, but at least we have a backbone understanding of the behaviors and the ethics and the structure and framework of this coaching that we are often educating people about. Because although lots of people have been coached now more than ever, there are still people coming to coaching that have never been coached before. And I believe we have a responsibility to ensure that we are aligned with each other as professionals doing this work in the world. And that will have the greatest impact.
The word, as you were talking about, consistency, integrity, ethics, trust. I kept thinking about, an industry that we all know that's heavily regulated. It's the financial industry. And I work with leaders, the C-suite in those industries. And, and you talk about something heavily regulated, that's what it is. And it's for the protection of the consumer, right? But here, I think it's the same way. It's creating trust. And that word kept coming to me, trust. It's creating a trusted relationship within the coaching exchange. And I think that is so powerful. Any thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh. You just nailed exactly what I was trying to get to. One of the things that absolutely blew me away when I came to coaching and understood for the first time what this was, because it very much was a calling. It's like, am I crazy? What's going on? But oh my God, I found my people. I found my tribe. And there was so much trust. It was that it wasn't regulated. That's actually what really spoke to me, that there was so much trust. There was trust in me. There was trust in the process. There was trust in my client. I mean, it was all based in trust, and that it wasn't regulated. That was the language I didn't have. So thank you for that word, because that was the word that was missing from what I offered. Is I think that is something very special and unique, because it provides coaching to grow and flourish and thrive and become what it can be, versus having to stay stuck in a context of what it has to be to maintain this regulated. So if we are all operating from the same place and understanding of ethics, professionalism in coaching, consumers can come to expect a certain standard of behavior globally. That we're taking care of our consumers. There's no need to be regulated. So we have some freedom to be fully expressed in this space, and also be aligned and provide that consistent experience worldwide within our own expression of that, which is so beautiful and so important in this field. And as far as why get credentialed, more and more, and this speaks to the question that I really appreciate, whoever asked that question. The tipping point is that I believe that more and more from this point forward, you will be increasing your visibility to potential clients by having a credential. I don't think it was all that totally necessary leading up to this. And that's the tipping point, is that I believe it is going forward will be necessary.
Oh, interesting. That falls right into my next question, but I do want to tick and tie something back though, because when we talk about the guardrails, we talk about trust, and we talk about that coaching exchange, it goes back to one of those requirements, which is coach education, right? Which is that coach education. And that coach education, according to the ICF, has to be specific, has to be it has to be aligned with the definition of coaching by the ICF. It has to align with the ICF core competencies and the ICF code of ethics. And so I just wanted to share that too as well, and just kind of tick and tie it back, because I think that that's powerful to have those guardrails to create that trust between the coachee and protection between the coach and the coachee.
And that extends also to people who are coming into coaching as professionals. As there are coaching organizations, there are coaching programs, there's Be a Coach in 2 days. There's all kinds of certifications out there. And as far as trust goes, because of the rigor that an educator has to go through and align with the ICF standards around in order to be a listed, approved, accredited educator by the ICF, you can trust that if you're going to an ICF-accredited coach educator, that you are getting that quality of education, as opposed, yeah. So exactly.
That's interesting that you say that, because my next question is, obtaining coach credentials from coach educators. What questions should we ask there? But before you answer that, you had touched on something. When are coach credentials most necessary? You said there is a tipping point where it becomes necessary. Is there a specific? I don't want to miss this because it was in my mind. But are there different professions or areas, verticals, industry verticals where it does become necessary? And I'm thinking healthcare, because I feel like there's great coaching cultures in healthcare, and so. Are there, and I think that's becoming necessary, that coach credential is becoming necessary. Is that one? Are there others?
There, healthcare for certain. There are some organizations now that provide their own coach training in-house. So in that regard, if you're looking at internal or organizational coaching, You may not have to have a credential, however, because they do their own in-house training. However, in many job descriptions, they're asking for credentialed coaches to come in, and then they train them up within their coaching model. So again, tipping point being shown there. So definitely organizational internal coaching. If one is starting their own practice, again, credibility and visibility, I think it does enhance both or increases both. And as far as other areas, other industries, I can't really speak to anything specific, except that I have heard a lot about healthcare of recent, and I know that because organizations have been accessing coaching since day one. So that, again, more and more people are looking for credentialed coaches. Also, from the practicing standpoint, the platforms that hire coaches are looking for credentials. So if you are looking having different streams of income in your coach practice and engaging with coach platforms like BetterUp or other organizations that do a revenue share model, then you are required to have a credential, ACC minimum. Some are now looking at PCC.
Wow. No, thank you. We have two questions here, which I love. Absolutely. So we have one here. It says, which aspect do you think is closely related to be credentialed, personal credibility, trust, or experience evidence?
So what is the question within those two again? What is it? What's more important?
Yeah, I would say basically, I think that's what they're asking. Is it personal credibility, trust, or experience evidence that is more closely related to being credentialed?
Ooh, I think they're equal. What an interesting question.
Yeah, because when I look at this, Lorraine, I was thinking, to be credentialed, I think it goes back to the definition that you provided earlier today, in that it is proof of the knowledge that you've attained through an accredited coach educator. So it's the proof of the knowledge that you and practicum, right? It's the in the doing. But I guess you're right. Oh, interesting. I'm gonna let you answer that.
Well, the coach education definitely is one part of that. But I think that they're all important, which is why there's the 5. The experience hours are where people learn to embody the coaching mindset, because a lot of people come to coaching at the beginning not fully thinking they know what coaching is, and then learning that they don't, or they didn't know aspects of it. So to get those experience hours, if you are not working internally in an organization, that requires trust and developing that aspect of you. So I really think they go hand in hand. And I hope I'm answering the question.
No, I think that's good. No, I think, they're, like you said, they're equal. I went right to experience evidence, that experience, but you're right. You're absolutely right.
You can't get the experience without the trust.
Yeah, exactly. So, thank you. Andrew asked this question: how does ICF vet individuals seeking to be credentialed that are high-level subject matter experts but lacks empathy and emotional intelligence? Ooh.
I think the competencies do that. So if someone were submitting performance evaluations, that would show up in the performance evaluation aspect. If the empathy isn't there, the coaching can't happen. It will look like leading, directing. It will
Right.
be called out at that time. So someone can go through coach education and not have the capacity for empathy, come to their performance evaluation. They can potentially even get the experience hours. I don't know if they could get their mentoring hours, because if their mentor is working on that but not successful, but they get their 10 hours, then it would definitely occur at the performance evaluation stage, because that is where the competencies really help us objectively measure the behaviors of a coach and embodying the coaching mindset.
And that's interesting because even the questions, the way they're formulated, they're not easy. So it's, you feel like there are different ways to answer them, right? But if you're looking at the question and you can immediately determine what competency it falls under or ethics, then you can really answer that question. So you really do have to have that knowledge.
So
and I think it does show that.
So what you're suggesting is, so the performance evaluation that I was speaking to is it shows up in the coach recordings that are assessed.
Oh, and the okay.
And what you're saying as well is valid. And that is that the exam, the ability to answer the questions, the way that the coach, the ICF credentialing exam is written, it's applied knowledge, and you won't be able to pass that if you are not able to exhibit or embody or understand coaching at the extent that you need to. And I was going to say something about the exam. You only have to take that once. That exam, unless they rewrite it again, because we've just gone through a rewrite of the exam. So people who have taken it once have to take it again, but I can't see in the next 10 to 15 years that happening again. Maybe it will. But right now, if you take that exam at the PCC or ACC level, however you're coming in to your credentialing, you don't need to take that again. So it's
okay. We had another question pop up. If I'm a mental health care nurse, can I count these hours in the 100 minimum hours? They are.
I know the question.
Okay.
So you can count experience hours if it is in your job description that you are coaching, and there is an agreement for coaching. So you're meeting for specific coaching. So if you're doing ad hoc coaching, like in the hallway, someone, it's in your job description, but you're doing coaching as you pass in the hallway or at the water cooler for 10 minutes, those hours wouldn't count. However, if you are having actual coaching sessions with folks and you have allotted time for that, you can count that, those half hours, those hours, those 15 minutes, yes, as experience hours. Does that address the question?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes. If not, please, Natalie, ask again, please. She did say this. She says, these are fixed sessions, even if my title is not coach.
If your title is not coach, but it says in your job description that coaching is part of your job description, you can utilize those hours as experience hours. So if you are doing fixed sessions, Natalie, I would encourage you to go to whoever it is that might be able to influence this change for you. And if it's doesn't say coaching in your job description and you're actually doing fixed coaching sessions, you can have that put in your job description, perhaps, if they're willing to edit that, and you can then use those experience hours.
Excellent. No, thank you. We have another question here. Do you think employee assistant plans, EAPs, will start to cover for coaching? Currently, I see they cover counseling and wonder if covering coaching would be more beneficial. I'm going to let you answer that first, and then I'll add some stuff there as well.
So I am hopeful that will happen in the short term. There are bodies of individuals, there are groups of individuals that are working on that. Again, it's part of our emerging profession and part of us developing as a professional entity, which again is part of why this credentialing conversation is so important. So I appreciate the question, and yes, I hope that efforts pay off in that shortly, because it will just open up coaching for so many people who may not be able to access it at this time.
And I'm finding that corporations are paying for education. They're paying for continuing education, and they're paying for, to become credentialed coaches. And I truly believe that is just, it'll come around full circle. It'll come to be that. There's another question really quickly, and then we'll go on to some more of these questions. We have a couple left. I work as a coach with grade 5 learners. can I log these hours as experience hours?
If you have coaching in your job description. Yes.
All right, Louise, I think we got that answer very quick. We have another one. She's asking, how long after you got your certification did you get credentialed? Now, I know you mentioned you got PCC, then you got MCC, but maybe to get to PCC, I mean, how after you were
Yeah.
when you got your certification and then moved
I
forward?
really appreciate that question because it gives context for the journey. And I also want to give my own individual context for that journey because it's important because everyone's situation is very different. So my journey was, again, PCC was the first credential that I could get. That was a 3-year journey. And then it was 3 more to get my 2,500 paid hours, experience hours for my MCC. So it was a 6-year overall journey. I was single. I was 28 years old. Well, between 28 and then 6 years older, I guess. I was 28 when I started. So it was really my focus. That's all I did is I worked at my coaching and I coached full time. I didn't have a significant other. I was just really focused on my goal and what I was doing. That and salsa dancing, those 2 things.
We'll have a whole webinar on that, Lorraine.
Yeah. So in general, what you can expect or what I've seen being in the field and mentoring coaches over the years is that anywhere from 12 to 18 months for your ACC, depending on how much you're coaching. For people who are internal coaches who are logging their experience hours internally with an organization or their job, that might come more quickly than someone who's running their own business. So think about that as part of what you are preparing for. The PCC is 3 to 5 years, I would say, and then 5 to 8 years and beyond for your MCC, 2,500 experience hours. It sounds like a lot. And it is slightly daunting when you're starting out. And I'd encourage if you feel called to that type of growth and development in this field, go for it, claim it at the very beginning, because it once you get going, those hours come quite quickly, and the growth and how it will benefit your life and your clients. I just highly recommend because it is the rigor and the milestones give you something to work towards and aspire to, but the growth and the positive impact on your life as a result, both skills and personal development wise, will change your life exponentially. And I want that for all of you. So that's really at the heart of my credentialing mission and what I want to communicate today.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Lorraine. Again, more insight into who you are and get to know you even better. What should people look for who are starting out their coaching journeys, who are just embarking on them? What should they look for in a coach educator, and why?
Such a good question. And I gave this a lot of thought because it's so personal. There's so much out there. And again, context, folks. There were 3 accredited ICF training schools when I started. I had to choose from 3. And I don't even know how many there are today, like over 200.
No.
So it's a big, so due diligence is required. And I would definitely look at referrals. I did want to point out that the ICF has a coach education search service. So it's an internal search engine for coach educators that might align with you. So I would start with what's important to you in your coach education. Do you want an in-person training? Do you want an intensive? Do you want it to be spanned out over time? Do you want a psychological bent? Do you want a neuro-linguistic bent? So if you can come up with 5 or 10 top essentials, non-negotiables for you and your training, you will more likely align with and be able to weed out some training right away. So you need to look at what is it that you're looking for specifically. What are your needs? What are your wants? What are your goals? If your goals are not to be certified, then you may not need to take a coach educating like through the ICF. You might want to go to a weekend program and just get a certification. However, if you're looking at really taking this profession seriously and growing with the profession as it's growing exponentially at this time, then consider how important that ICF affiliation is for you, number one. Consider what's important for you, number two, and then start to talk to people, do some searches, know that it's going to take some time. And there are organizations that provide live Q&As and, like you're doing here, drop down into what they're offering. A lot of coach educators will provide some free webinars, opportunities to connect, to relate, get your needs met, ask for what you need, and they should deliver. And if they don't, that maybe tells you something too.
Okay, that was great. Because I do think it's personal. I think it truly is a personal journey, right? And and I'll just share this. When I went through go ahead.
Faculty, who are the
Faculty? Yes.
When you look at the bios of the faculty, are the faculty accredited by the ICF? Are they certified? What is the integrity of the rigor? What is the mission of the school? Do they have referrals? Are there students that they have taken the program that you can speak to? That can, yeah.
No, I think that's great. Due diligence. That's the key there. But it is a personal journey. It's interesting because when I went through my training, I took the course, I think it was personal groundwork for coaching. And it was in that course that I really looked at introspectively at who I wanted to be as a coach and who I can be as a coach. And so that started to define my path. We may have a depth and breadth of experience and expertise in our profession and in our personal and professional lives. But when you start to go through this journey, it's introspective. It really is and it's transformational. It truly is a personal journey. We have two other questions, and then I think we're coming out. I just want to do a time check. We have about 8 minutes. Yep.
One more point on what to look for. A new trend in coach education is standalone courses, and it might not be a new trend, but it definitely is it's snowballing. Taster courses or standalone courses. If you are interested in a particular educator, before you make the commitment, see if they have standalone courses where you could really get an experience, or a standalone course or a Q&A or something where you can really interact on the platform that they offer. Yeah. I'm done.
Oh, great. So we have a couple questions. This is, I was wondering why previous hours before being in a program are not counted or being counted. I heard of people being able to use previous hours.
That may have been in the past. That is no longer. As long as I have been aware of this standard, it has been because of the training / experience hour, the standard of coaching that one is doing. While I offer that, I would recommend reaching out. If the ICF is where you are aligning with your credentialing journey, call them and ask them and challenge that. I'd encourage anyone who has coach hours that they feel are viable and go to the ICF and see if you can challenge that in any way. I'm always one for opening for dialogue and for collaboration and for, so please don't just take my word for it. If you feel that would be a benefit to you, have a conversation with someone at the ICF.
Thank you. There was another question there. Our group coaching hours,
yes,
can they be attributed to your towards your required hours?
Yes, group coaching hours equal 1 hour. So you may have 10 people in your group, it still counts as 1 hour. However, it is an experience hour.
Excellent. Well, Lorraine, I can't thank you enough for just being here and for sharing more insight about your journey, but also valuable information about, answers to questions that, that are often asked and we don't know where to find them. And so, it's been a pleasure getting to know you even more today. And I hope that, and I trust that the audience found this most valuable for them as well.
Ellie, I know you're on a time here.
Sure.
I for those people who may be on the call that have done some coach education, I did want to acknowledge that there are fully accredited programs. There's different paths to getting your credential, and I can't go into detail because it's too confusing to put it all out in this space, but it is on the ICF website, and there are people that can walk you through it. But just understand that if you have coach education from different places, there is a portfolio path that you can take for your credential, not just a full-blown. So you can add up your hours and check with the ICF if they will approve those hours through a portfolio path. I just wanted to share that information because I felt it needed to be transparent, because that gets lost, I think, sometimes in.
No, thank you so much. And that just kind of, as we close here, I'd like to thank the audience for just spending this hour with us. For those of you who are looking for CCE credit, you will get that information. You will get that credit. I also want to share with you a few of the upcoming programs here at the International Coaching Group, also known as Coaching Out of the Box. We have a fast track to ICF credential program that starts on June 26th. There is still room available. I did speak with the operations manager before I came on here today, and we do have a few openings. We also have another one that will start on July 25th. Our 555 coaching skills training program, which is a trademark training program, actually over 40,000 people have taken that training corporately and individually. And that starts on June 26th as well. That's an evening program. We have an ICF credentialing assessment prep class. That is what Lorraine had spoke about earlier, that recording and that transcript. You need help, and we can help with that. Personal groundwork for coaching program starts on July 19th. We also have a certified diversity coach program that starts on October 4th. And so please reach out to us. One other thing I wanted to add is that there is a new program. It's a series that the International Coaching Group is promoting, and it's a coach approach to effective communication. It's a series that starts introductory, intermediate, and advanced level, because it is truly changing the conversations and elevating the conversations that people are having in organizations and corporations globally across the enterprise. So please reach out to us if you have any questions. But I want to thank you, Lorraine, again. Thank you. Thank you to our tech team, and thank you to all of you who joined us today. Thank you.
Ellie, can I bring your attention to Gustavo has patiently had his hand up to ask a question. I was wondering if it would be okay to let him speak at this point.
Absolutely. Please, yes.
Gustavo, I don't know if you can unmute yourself and ask your question. I'm not sure if he's.
Hi, sorry.
Hi.
It was hi. It was already answered. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, great, Gustavo. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I apologize. I didn't see a hand raised because I guess I'm looking at a different screen here. I apologize.
That's
Did
okay.
anybody else have a question, Stephanie or Hallie, that was in the chat that maybe we can answer?
Nope, you've got to everybody's questions. That was the only one. So
Perfect. Well, Lorraine, again, thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Hallie. Thank you, Stephanie.
And I just want to wish everyone on the call, may your coaching journey be fruitful and fulfilling, and may you stay true to who you are in all that you do. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Everyone.